Okay, I'm always waiting for this timer to go off, and it always makes me have this kind of really short delay at the front of my videos. So hopefully you don't mind too much because I know some of you are video connoisseurs and you're very into video and maybe it's annoying. I have no idea. Um, Sometimes I get the feeling that my facial expressions are annoying or my eyeball movements are kind of annoying. I have no idea. To me, I think I look dead sexy. Um, but anyway. I haven't made a video in 3 weeks, and I'm about to go on a short trip, and it's nothing huge, but it's the furthest I've been out of Toronto in a long time, a really long time. Um, I think the last trip I took out of Toronto was, forgetting Brampton, but I mean, the last trip I took out of Toronto was Algonquin Park, and it was just at the southern tip of Algonquin Park. It was Gravenhurst. Um, and you know what? I don't really remember a lot of that trip. I don't. I remember there was a big bucket of KFC involved. I mean, there was no drinking involved. I mean, at the end of the trip, we all came back and we kind of had a good chuckle and beer over the great day we had and all that stuff. But my memory is just so awful. Even if we had the greatest time I will ever have in my life, I wouldn't have. I would remember it for all the gold in the world. But I did have a really good time. Don't get me wrong, and it's nothing personal for the trip advisors and the trip planners and all that stuff. I mean, I really appreciated it, and now that I think a lot of them are going to see this video too and think, "Oh, you bastard," right? But yeah, it was a really great day, and now I have this opportunity again to leave Toronto, and it's going to be a very different kind of trip, and I'm imagining, a small town kind of atmosphere. I mean, I've read a little bit about the demographics of the town. It's mostly white. But I have to admit, while the largest religious group there is, I think it's like 23% Roman Catholic, but there's also like a 24% or 29%. I might be a little bit off there on the numbers with the Christians and the atheists, but I think the Christians, the Roman Catholics, and the atheists, or the nuns, as we like to call them, or atheists basically, um, I think are basically on par in Kingston. So I think that's a little bit of an interesting thing, but I think it's very white. I think it's a very white town, and yeah, I mean, kind of reminds me of Gravenhurst and all the other little towns we kind of stopped off at before hitting Algonquin and on the way back as well. Very very white. Um, Anyway, so it'd be interesting, just to get away, and I'm really looking forward to that trip. I mean, there's so much I want to do. I mean, the Thousand Island cruise is going to be just, I bet you, amazing. But I'm gonna save, I wasn't gonna give myself away on video, but I think I'm gonna save a lot of my photographs for when I come back. Like, I don't think I'll post them, ad hoc. I think I'll post them after I've had time to think about some of the commentary and, to sift through some of the really good ones and kind of make a nice little album on Facebook when I return. So anyway, so I'm doing this video because that's all gonna happen, and so, as you can tell, I'm very excited about the trip, etc., etc. Today was a lot of planning, and I'm not used to planning. I used to do a lot of planning for some stuff, um, but yeah, I've to my detriment, I'm kind of rusty on on finding details, but everything worked out. I mean, I think the trip is going to go ahead as planned and probably seamlessly, if not more seamless than I even imagined. So anyway, the one thing I wanted to talk about, and maybe two things. The video was getting kind of long, but I wanted to talk about this new thing I'm doing on my blog, Spiral Vent. And yes, I admit, I don't know what people think I'm doing on Spiral Vent, although my mandate seems pretty obvious. Like, I mean, I said I was going to be doing a self-education project, but I don't know how much people read the mandate, and then when they see the everyday posts, especially the people that follow me, when they see these very kind of like strong kind of writings or blurbs that they almost sound like quotes from famous people. Maybe not as smart because it's kind of derivative. I will admit that. Um, but yeah, they see these kind of strong quote like things, like these nuggets of like solid information, or at least they sound that way, and they seem to make sense to me. I don't know how much sense they make to other people, although there are jokes and stuff like that. But jokes aside, I'm not sure how much my mandate really comes through with the everyday posts that I make. I know with some of my videos, I'm a little bit abstract, so I'm not saying anything too factually based. But anyway, I don't know how well any of this comes across, but I think there's a theme, if this makes any sense. There's a theme on the atheism thing, blah blah blah. Um, there's a feel to it, but I just don't know exactly what that feel is saying. But it seems thematically coherent, like the whole thing seems kind of it doesn't stray too far from some of the issues, and I'm kind of pulling a lot of stuff from the intellectual dark web. So I mean, some conversations come up over and over again. So like free speech, for instance, that's a huge one. And I noticed the other day people started referring to certain people as free speech warriors, and I've seen that very rarely, and I think that's sort of like the SJW answer to SJW, free speech warriors. But it's free speech warriors are supposed to be like these jackass conservative right wing people. Jordan Peterson gets it all the time. Sam Harris gets it all the time. I think that's the answer to SJW. Although I don't think there's in it. I mean, free speech is free speech, and I think it's hey, if it wasn't for free speech, I wouldn't be able to do the stuff or say the stuff I say on my blog. But I think that also goes for a lot of other issues that are very touchy. I think the latest one, the John A. Macdonald statue thing that was removed from Victoria City Council in BC, I think free speech has um, some role to play in all of that, because there's a lot of tension between racists and indigenous people and historians and what people think about where these statues fit into legacy and honor and the nation's history and things like that. I find the whole statue debate silly in the sense that um, I don't see how stat really create much harm. I don't. And my jumping point, and I mean, the news already curated this, so I don't have to curate it for you. But I mean, while in the midst of the whole statue debate being taken down at City Hall in Victoria, I mean, and then there was also the vandalism of John A. Macdonald statue in Montreal. I mean, that was kind of stupid. Destruction of public property. I don't see how that solves anything. I don't see how even having a statue up without sans the vandalism actually solves anything. I don't see how. I mean, I went to Ryerson for 4 years, and the school is really diverse. Like they really are diverse. You see all sorts of people. There are all sorts of people in my program. Like nobody ever felt like discriminated against. And every day, right across from the Image Arts Building, you would see Egerton Ryerson statue just like standing right there, and we all know what he was big for, right? So yeah, nobody felt discriminated against. But I think these universities have changed a lot along with the rest of society. Like I think they have changed. People are very touchy about certain things now. They were talking about the Nova Scotia explosion. Did I say that right? The Halifax explosion, the Nova Scotia explosion. Well, whatever it is. I mean, I don't, but I'm sure you know. Like, I mean, where does the offense come from? These like innocuous things. Like, where does the like? Where I don't get. Like, how long have these statues been around? And like, I mean, well, what have they? I don't see what they've done. I mean, you know what? I say I'm with my friend on this one. I say slap a plaque on it, like a contextual plaque at the bottom, and just saying, giving both sides with. I'm siding with Dave Rubin on this one too, but just a plaque with just the two different versions, not two different versions of history, but I mean, let's face it, these guys weren't one dimensional, right? Like, I mean, they're not. So, I mean, but I'm not saying that I'm not supporting cultural genocide or residential schools or molestation. I'm not supporting any of that. None of it. I find those things quite disgusting. But what I am saying is like, how over the top can people be about just these statues? Like, I mean, they anyway. I think they get way too much attention. And just as a jumping off point, jumping off in terms of me losing my point, but there was this mosque in, hold on, let me check. So in the midst of the statue thing, there was a mosque in Ottawa, of all places, where a couple of the imams were actually caught promoting hate and intolerance. And I know when you start talking about things like free speech, blah blah blah, you start, in some philosophical arguments, you start blurring the lines between hate speech and the incitement of violence and free speech and what that means, freedom of expression, blah 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 blah. So I think it's a healthy debate. I don't think it's something that's going to be solved universally or across the world. But I mean, there's clear violations, and these imams were basically preaching that homosexuals should be put to death. I think they were saying things like anti-Semitic things as well, but they were the death of certain groups of people. And I mean, where does the free speech religion thing kind of come into play? I mean, the Quran, the Bible too, right? Like, I mean, it directly says in all the different versions or whatever. Like, I mean, maybe not the Quran and the blah blah blah, but like, I mean, yeah, like, I mean, the text actually literally says that like homosexuals must be put to death. Like, I mean, you'd have to do some real intellectual gymnastics to get over the literalism of what it says in those holy books. So I don't know. Like, I mean, how can I mean, on my blog, I basically said that no, I don't think that should be allowed. I don't think they should have tax exempt status. I think the government should fund things that are research based, that are based on humanistic principles as opposed to religious ones, and I think that's the way we're generally headed anyway. Um, but yeah, an interesting little thing. So we're arguing about statues in Victoria and we're vandalizing them in Montreal. Meanwhile, there's a living, breathing human being telling congregants to basically, call for or basically um, it's not even suggesting, but blatantly saying that certain groups of people need to be put to death for being who they are. So yeah, I mean, that if you don't see the difference, then it seems like one of those things that's kind of lost, no matter what else I say next. But I mean, you just have to look at where this inspiration comes from. Like, I mean, there is a difference between a statue and, like I said, I spent 4 years at Ryerson looking at Egerton Ryerson, his statue across the street from the Image Arts Building, like staring at it basically every morning. Um, but and I never saw any sort of incitement to violence or hatred or death or anything like that. And but I mean, these are living, breathing human beings in a mosque of all places, basically preaching death. And there was a story a couple of years ago. I think it was a couple of years ago where they said that there was just like hate materials, strewn across the foyer of certain Islamic institutions. Like, not that the institution or any of the imams were wanted for or criminalized through hate speech or anything like that. But they just have these materials. But I mean, like I said, the Quran, like, I mean, you look in there and you look in the Bible or whatever, you will see like these texts that say that homosexuals should be put to death. Like, I mean, it's pretty blatant. Like, I mean, you know, um, I mean, there's things in the Bible too. You kind of have to. I feel like I have to give this disclaimer about Islam. Have to say like, well, the Bible also says weird shit too. But like, the Quran is kind of. I mean, these days I think Islam is kind of in the spotlight, and they will be coming in the coming years, in the coming decades. They will be the most populous religion in the world. So I mean, these things are things we have to think about. Whether that's going to be moderate Islam, who knows? Who knows? Um, but yeah, so the statue thing, and then this like kind of like hate speech thing going on. It's I don't want to give myself away too much, but I do think there's a line that's being played with there in terms of freedom of expression and freedom of religion and hate speech and inciting hatred and inciting violence and inciting or calling for the death of certain people. And then the statue thing, which is I'm just rambling right now, but I think that's about it. So I did not intend to give away where I was going on my trip because, and I think some of you already know exactly what I'm going to do on this Kingston trip. But I mean, I won't be offensive about it. I might even try to be funny. But that's why I want to curate the images when I come back. But yeah, that's about it. I've noticed this video was really choppy, so I'm hoping it kind of works out. But yeah, let's see if I can make this. I have a lot of laundry to do too, but fuck it. I was gonna try to make this exactly 15 minutes, but not gonna happen. Bye.